What's up, folks? Justin Garcia, a.k.a. Master Chim in the house, and I'm here with the white boy, Patrick Kelly.
What's up?
And welcome to Pressure Project Radio, number 64. ThePressureProject.com is our website. Info at ThePressureProject.com is our contact email. TheWarriorProject.com is our membership site. And it is blowing up, so check it out. All right, couple things going on today. I didn't ask you prior to this, Pat, but do you have those names of all those people?
Yes.
Of course you do, you fucking robot. Well, we have some shout outs for some people that bought, basically, rather than pay monthly, they just joined the Warrior Project at a maximum level. And they took the yearly, and we have a bunch of names to shout them out because that's part of the deal.
It is.
So, Pat, why don't you bang that out?
Sure. So I have Jim Yankowski, Steve Frolich, Brendan O'Brien,
Frolich?
Medford.
Fucking terrible.
Yeah, Jim Yankowski. I've written weird. And then first names Doug, Benito, Bobby, and David.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, welcome to all of you, or welcome back to most of you, because most of you, we're at the point now, we've been doing this so long where people are re-upping, which is pretty cool to see. And changing everything to the Warrior Project and all the changes we've made recently, we've also had people reinvest in the membership site, the Warrior Project. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see. And I got to say, like, one of the things that people that run membership sites always talk about is the churn rate. And churn rate is pretty much like how many guys are you losing every month, and then you compare it to how many guys you're gaining every month. Then it starts to give you an idea as to, the momentum of the membership site and the effect that certain things that you do has on that membership site. Our churn rate is extremely, extremely low. A lot of the people that join stay involved, become involved. The private Facebook group, the Warrior Project Facebook group, has been an incredible tool to allow us to stay connected and interact. I'm continuing the Monday Manversations on that private page, and the guys seem to be enjoying that. So everything's going well, man. I ain't got no damn complaints.
Yeah, 100%. It's going good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let me give a shout out. I got a bunch of people watching right now. Big Matt, Ricardo's in the house. Lockie, Eric, KD, Beard, Odinson, Big Nick, Monks, Walt. What's going on, guys? All right. So we got a bunch of other things that, I got a bunch of questions from people during the course of the week, and I had written them down. I want to get to them, but first I want to deal with you guys. You guys that are watching, feel free to put a question down, a comment, something that you want my take on or White Boy Pat's take on, and we'll address it. The reason we do these things live and not pre-recorded is because we want to, interact with you guys as much as possible. So, Matthew Johnson. Big Chad, what's up, brother? Matthew Johnson says, MC, since you coach fighters, I have a question. Since I'm starting boxing, should I fight heavyweight even though I walk around at that weight, or should I cut down to fight light heavyweight? I walk around between 225, 215. The light heavyweight tops out at 200 pounds, and heavyweight is 200 unlimited amateur boxing. Well, I don't know if you are at your fight weight right now. So if you're saying you walk around 225, 215 in the preparation for a fight, you might wind up being 200 pounds. You might wind up being 200, 205. I am a believer in weight cutting, and for my fighters at least. But one of the reasons that I'm a believer in weight cutting is I think it's always going to exist. I think as soon as you have a weight class, as soon as you have classes that people are falling into, there's always going to be somebody looking to make sure they're at the top of a weight class. The people that say that, weight classes don't matter, you should just go with your natural weight, you shouldn't have to co-weight. But like, for kids, it's one thing, because I firmly believe for kids, especially, prepubescent kids, there is no real need to force them to cut weight. We see in amateur athletics, obviously I'm thinking of wrestling. That's, what I'm comfortable with and familiar with. We see kids jump weight classes all the time. We see them dominate one weight class, dominate another weight class. There is such a long-term effect on encouraging that culture early on that I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. But if you're talking about adults that are, potentially competing in events that are going to feed their families, that are going to allow them to pursue whatever their missions are, it's very hard to sit here and sort of establish some sort of moral high ground, when it comes to weight cutting. Like I'm the same thing with performance enhancing drugs. I think everybody should be able to take whatever they want. And now, and the other side of that, what I have to say before everybody jumps the gun is if there are rules that say you can't use it, you absolutely should never use it, because then you're a cheater, you're a liar, you're a fraud. But in a conceptual sense, I think that it's counterintuitive, it's inconsistent, and I think it's just not very productive to take the position that health is our first concern in a sport like boxing, a sport like MMA. I'm not, like, health is not what we're worried about. I got my guy Paul Hannibal Grant fighting Friday down in Atlantic City at the Tropicana in the Ring of Combat promotion. Like, I'm not wishing for the health of his opponent. I hope his opponent doesn't get injured. I hope he doesn't die. But I hope Paul hurts him enough to win the fight. Like, that is the nature of what it is that we're doing.
Just stay healthy enough to get in the cage.
Right. Like, exactly. Stay healthy enough to get in the cage. And then, I want you as far below that as quickly as possible, because that's the nature of what we're doing. So when it comes to weight cutting, there's always going to be people that do it. And, speaking as somebody, when I fought MMA, I fought at 170. And I got in the cage the next day at like 185, 186. Like, I'm strong as fuck, to begin with. To give me 15, 16 pounds over you, that's a fucking problem, And again, if you're talking about, and really it's, what are you trying to get out of it? You're trying to be somebody who just gets in there and fucks around and, and you want to be able to say that you did it. Well, that's a certain level of commitment. And, with that, sure, there's some flexibility because you're not doing everything in your power to be competitive to begin with. But if you are doing everything in your power to be competitive, to not include weight cutting in that, I think is just disingenuous, So, I don't know where you are, Matt, when you're in shape, right? When you start hitting those 2-a-days, you start hitting your diet right, you start getting that cardio up, you might very well be 200, 205 pounds. And to be 205, and to fight somebody 235, 245, because, somebody tells you that, oh, you shouldn't cut weight. Like, it's just bullshit. It's nonsense, So I absolutely would say to cut weight, and just like the people that cut weight and it's dangerous where, they're trying to lose 20, 30 pounds in a week. That's just retarded, but it's just as retarded as not training for a fight. It's just retarded as being outmatched in a fight. There are a lot of retarded fucking things you could do in a combat sport, that are going to get you hurt. Trying to cut weight that is probably, more than 10, 11% of your body weight. Like, yeah, you're probably going to run into an issue, but just the same types of issues you run into if you didn't fucking train or if you were outmatched, you fought somebody that completely outclassed you,
Yeah, makes sense.
So that is that. What's going on, Zach? What's up, Jamie? Irwin in the house. What's up, bro? Yeah, so like Paul is fighting at a catch weight. He usually fights 135, and he's fighting at a catch weight of 142 on Friday. And it's just difficult finding him fights. And he walks around probably high 50s. So there's an example of somebody who's walking around, 58 to 60 normally. Once he starts training, like once we get a fight going and we start his fight camp, he starts training, he starts his dieting, he's immediately down to like 50, like within a week or two, just tightening up his diet and throwing in those extra cardio sessions. By the time we start getting, closer to the day, he's probably, usually for him, he's usually within 10, 11 pounds of his fight weight a week out. Now he's probably hovering around 50, 49 because he doesn't have that much weight to lose. Usually, he's got to make 35. He's got 7 fucking pounds added to it. So it makes his preparation a lot easier. So, you say, well, why doesn't he just fight at a higher weight if he feels better? Well, the thing is, he's fighting a guy who's accustomed to fighting at 45. I think his opponent even had a couple of bouts at 55. So he's a big kid,
Yeah.
and the thing is, you could be as comfortable as you want. Right now, I'm 280, right? I'm 5'5", 280. If I want to fight at 280, I'm fighting somebody who's 6'5", 260 pounds. That's a fucking problem for me, So it's all relative. Getting to your fight weight is an important thing. And until you do that, you don't really know where your weight's going to be. People be surprised. Oh, I'm in shape. I weigh 180 pounds. And then we get you in a camp. We start getting you training. We start tightening up your diet. Next thing you know, you're 160, I had a guy, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago. Or, let's take Joe Aviles, right? One of my fighters. Hasn't fought in a while, but super, super talented kid. When he first started training with me, he was 1-0. He had fought once at 205. And in shape, huge arms, very muscular body. And I took one look at him and said, yeah, you're probably a 55er, maybe 70, but probably a 55er. He thought I was fucking crazy. So he had already fought at 205. He had submitted to do the 205. And the first thing I told him was that he was a 55er. Sure as shit, we started in training, started in dieting, and his weight just fell off because he was all bloated and swollen and shit, But and he comes from a judo background, and judo players really don't cut a lot of weight typically, That's my take on it, By the way, if anybody's around Atlantic City Friday, come and see Paul whoop that ass.
Yeah, it's going to be a good fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Matt, you're welcome. He says, thanks, MC. I wanted to ask your opinion before I made a decision on weight class. Absolutely. But get in shape, see where you're at. If you're within 10 pounds, I'm always going to say cut, And I say 10, 11% body weight. So we're talking, 20, 22 pounds. You're talking about 100, 200-pound guy. So I'm aggressive with the weight cuts, But you got to be safe. You got to be. I've never had a guy not make weight. I've never had a guy not be able to fight because the weight cut was so drastic. So if you know how to do it properly, it's something that can be done over and over again. It's been done forever. Because a couple of fat kids pop a bunch of fucking ephedra tablets and do wind sprints in a 110-degree day and have fucking heart attacks. Like, listen, stupid shit is going to get you stupid shit, But, this has been done. You got to imagine how many people are cutting weight, how many people are doing this every single day, depending on the sport, the weight divisions that, they have to succumb to. This is something that statistically is not as dangerous as people want to make it out to be. Yeah, if you're stupid, it's dangerous, but just being stupid is dangerous. It doesn't even matter if it's cutting weight or something else,
Yeah, we do it correctly. If you do it right, there's no problems. I've never had an issue. I've cut tons of weight. Never.
Oh yeah, you're a fucking maniac. What were you cutting for those tournaments?
The most I ever cut was 30 pounds, 32 pounds. Yeah, and that was over.
And you were like spitting fucking chalk, right?
I was spitting blood the one time, but I was 100% fine. Like, I was good. And for my fight, I was.
If you're spitting blood, I'm going to say maximum 99% fine. Okay.
I felt great. I could have fought right then. And when I fought, 165 down to 147.
Mm-hmm.
That was the cut.
Yeah,
that was over the course of a long time.
Right.
But 147. Can you imagine that?
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
Mike Odinson says, I was walking around at 270, got into training, going through my fight camp, got all the way down to 240. Never thought I would be that low again in my life until then. Hard to gauge sometimes. Absolutely. And when, I've been doing this long enough that a lot of times I'll look at somebody and I'll tell them what they weigh right there, and I'll tell them what they probably should be fighting at. And very rarely am I off. I got a good eye for that. People look at me and, they don't, like, I don't look 280 because my legs are so fucking big, but most people, when you're seeing them training, you get to see what their body type is like. And you see where they hold weight, where they don't hold weight. Like, I know what's going to fall off of you when you start training for a fight, as opposed to a dude with just a huge bone structure and really big legs. He's not going to drop as much as the guy who his weight is in his biceps, his chest, his neck, and his shoulders, because a lot of that shit's going to deflate, once he starts getting, the endurance aspect of his muscles developed,
100%.
Ricardo says, I walk around at 205 with a size 34 pants. When I was training for a triathlon years ago, I was 140 with a 28-inch waist. Looked like a refugee from Treblinka. 140. Holy shit, man. I don't understand that. Yeah, that whole, we know people. I know Kyle DeFore does the ultra marathons, and, a friend of our wife has done an ultra marathon, like these 100-mile races. Like, I don't fucking understand how that shit works. KD's got to have, he's got to have like titanium bird bones or some shit, because, if I run to the car, my fucking ankles and knees hurt. I can imagine 100 miles, And I gotta say, when I played Division III football, and every single camp, everybody running. Everybody wants you to run. I was always abysmal at distance running. I'd run a mile. I would do it. I wouldn't be out of breath or anything like that, but my body just fucking hurt. I hated running. When I played football, I graduated high school, as probably like high 160s. At the end of my freshman year, I was 200 pounds, 200 pounds and fast as fuck. I was running a 4.40, probably like in the 180s, which is
that's fucking fast.
So the thing is, I was quick, but fuck distance running. And you guys, I never make you guys run.
Nope.
Getting ready for fights,
And when I was getting the physical right before the fight, the doctor asked me, man, you must run a lot, because my heart rate was so low. I was like, I don't run at all. Right. So the cardio
I'm actually a psychopath. So
it's different.
Test me for being a psychopath. I'm pretty sure I'll pass. All right. Danny says, what's up, Danny? He says, I've dropped 40 pounds myself on flexible dieting, a shake for breakfast, sensible lunch, and a vegan-based dinner. No, not really. Double negative. The oil field killed me. I just got back to training, BJJ, and eat better. Yeah, I actually just started a low-carb diet myself. And I got a buddy of mine, Anthony Ribistello. Ribby is his nickname. He's a guy that I've known forever when I used to work in the funeral home, one of the funniest people on the planet. He has been doing this Facebook update every day of how many days he's had, without sugar. And he's on something like day 50, and he's down like 40-something pounds. And he's not doing like keto. He's not doing anything crazy. He's just not adding any fucking carbs to his diet, So no bread, no pasta, no rice, no desserts, no fruits. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now. I'm still following my intermittent fasting, so I have my 8-hour window. But I've been so up and down with my weight lately that I gotta focus, So it's pretty good. What's up, Herman? Yeah, all right. So good way to start. Let's get to the first question I had.
Cool.
And this is from my man Melvin. Melvin's a good dude. connected through social media for a bunch of years now. And he writes, it would be great to hear you discuss the signs of a bad martial arts program school instructor, as well as the signs of a great program school instructor. Great question. I've been running a school now for probably around 16 years. I think, no, actually 15, 16 years. I don't fucking know. I always get confused. I got to be better about this. It's like, my career and shit.
2001.
But I can't. What's that?
Was it 2001?
I don't think it was in 2001. I think it was the end of 2002.
Okay.
Right? I think it might have been the end of 2002. Whatever it was.
Long time.
About 15 years, a little 15 years. And, the things that I've learned over the course of that time is that I would say first and foremost, and this ties in very, very cleanly with the loyalty matrix. A lot of my loyalty matrix design and my tribal dynamic design comes off of a lot of my experiences, running my businesses, running my school, coaching fighters, etc. I've learned that what your mission is as a student is a significant part of what makes a school great to you, what makes a school terrible to you. I tell people all the time, listen, if you want to be a jiu-jitsu world champion, right, don't come to my school. You're going to have a hard time. You're going to be mocked when you're chasing the little trinkets. I'm going to go to this promoter's contest and I'm going to have 3 matches and get this little trinket, and I'm going to feel better about myself as a man and as a martial artist because I have this little trinket. Like, that's not what I'm about. I'm about finding where your weaknesses are and smashing them. I'm about pressure. I'm about developing yourself as somebody who has an intimate relationship with violence, somebody who has the mindset necessary to protect himself and his family, somebody who develops the tools through training to sort of overcome other conceptually paralleled type obstacles in his life. I'm not the guy that is going to train you for trinkets, so if you're somebody who doesn't know, who doesn't know, if you don't know what it is that you're going to want, what it is that you're trying to be, why it is that you're pursuing martial arts in the first place, that is where you should start. And, I tell everybody a lot of times when you have somebody who has heard about tournaments and winning medals, has maybe trained before, and has been exposed to that culture of the sport aspect of martial arts, and doesn't need to be jiu-jitsu, it could be any martial art really. Or maybe somebody who, follows MMA now and, hears the profiles, the biographies of their, favorite fighters, and they say, I want to go down a similar path. Well, there are places you go to sort of pursue that, right? So in New York, we have a tremendous assortment of martial arts schools in general, even within the subcategory of jiu-jitsu and MMA. I've run a school, like I said, over 15 years. I've seen a lot of schools come and go. I've gone through different phases in my school as well. When I first started my school, I was a very active competitor, and the school reflected that. And what I found was, there wasn't a fulfillment in pursuing the trinkets every weekend. I won a lot of medals. I, won a lot of matches. It's great to say that, I did this and, but now looking back on it, I keep that segment of what I was doing in its proper perspective. I think competition is important because I think at a certain point in a martial artist development, he needs a level of pressure that it's very hard to generate in the academy itself amongst teammates. He needs to face uncertainty. He needs to, overcome all of those
those mental obstacles first and foremost of dealing with the unknown. Going out there and producing and performing even when it is uncertain. Speaking of the outcome. So I think that. When it comes to a great school, it's really finding a school that's congruent, congruent to your mission. Beyond that, because that's a first step. Beyond that, you want to be with somebody who isn't full of shit. You don't want to be with somebody who says one thing and does another. You don't want to be with somebody who misrepresents his own abilities. I know a lot of guys back in the day that were running traditional martial arts schools, and with the prevalence of the UFC, all of a sudden they became MMA schools. And these guys never fought MMA. These guys never prepared people for MMA. You still see now a lot of people who ran traditional martial arts schools that have sort of transformed into MMA academies. A lot of them struggle. Their fighters struggle. And it's really, and I don't want to denigrate them at all because, it is what it is. But my whole thing is I think they would be better served sticking to who they are. You go to a lot of judo schools and they do judo. Like you're not going to go to a judo school and, they're going to tell you, listen, our judo is going to get you ready for an MMA fight. The more traditional karate schools, they stick, because they're proud of what they do and they stick with the curriculum and the identity that they're known for. But then you have those schools that, you have a guy who maybe was a great Taekwondo competitor or a point fighting competitor or whatever, and now he's training guys to fight in MMA, and he himself is not an MMA competitor. He himself is just beginning to understand the grappling aspect of what MMA is. But he doesn't tell his guys that. So to me, he's misrepresenting himself. To say that you're somebody who has never really experienced what MMA is, I'm a firm believer in if you're going to teach MMA, you have to have competed in MMA. That's my positioning. All my guys I made compete. Nobody out of anybody ever got to the point where they asked me to compete as far as the guys that work for me, that coach, the senior coaches, the head coaches at the Jungle Gym. Every single one of them, I let them know they were fighting. And nobody argued it. Everybody fought. And everybody won, at least their first match, right, Pat? But
yeah, I won the first one.
But the whole thing is, it comes down to congruence. If you're somebody who is like if you're looking to be a point fighter in karate, former student of mine, good friend of mine, Jody Tenshin, one of the best point fighters on the planet, travels the world, helping people get better at that sport, and he's somebody who maximizes his status, in that, particular endeavor. He's not training guys for MMA fights. And he's somebody who's trained jiu-jitsu. He's somebody who could probably win a lot of fucking MMA fights if he wanted to. But he sticks with, with his elite status, his elite abilities. So getting back to, what's a bad school, what's a great school, you got to start off with a congruence in the identity of the school to what your individual mission is. Aside from that, you look for integrity. You look for the guy who is what he says he is, who does what he says he does, the guy who is interested in building a legacy that extends beyond, his timeline, and I think probably what happens after that, or what you look for after that, is legitimate ability, legitimate, preparation, legitimate effectiveness. If you're somebody who goes to let's say a Wing Chun school, right? And you go to a Wing Chun school and you do it because you want to fight MMA, you're going to have a problem, because the amount of Wing Chun that is going to prepare you for MMA is not enough, in my opinion, from what I understand of Wing Chun. But if you're going to a Wing Chun academy because you are very much interested in being a part of the culture of Wing Chun, connected to the legacy of Wing Chun, and you want to sort of develop even your own individual body, right? Your physicality, in a way that Wing Chun prepares it, then who am I to tell you that you shouldn't train there? Wushu, Kung Fu, I wish I could do half the shit those people do, but I'm not going to do it thinking it's going to prepare me for MMA, but as long as you're congruent in what it is that you're doing, as long as the teacher is not full of shit, and as long as what you are exposing yourself to is effective, then yeah, you're in a good spot. There have been people who have left my academy to go train in schools that weren't as pressured, where they didn't have as much of a sort of standard, right? And
at least,
and it is what it is. I mean, if that's where you're more comfortable, then who am I to tell you where you're supposed to be? The whole thing is, I know if I go to a school to train, like let's use my example with SIOC. SIOC is not preparing me for MMA. SIOC is not someplace, I'm going to go to learn how to be a better competitor, specifically, directly. SIOC, though, has made me a better martial artist. SIOC has made me better at being everything that I try to be, as a man, as Justin Garcia. So the results or the effectiveness of SIOC has always been completely congruent with what I want from SIOC, but if somebody's telling me, listen, I want to fight MMA, should I do SIOC? I'm going to say SIOC doesn't answer that question. That's not the solution to your issue. But it's really, it comes down to congruence and such, So what else? Herman says, if you're going to teach the thing, you have to be able to do the thing well. Seems like basic logic to me. And you know what? Here's the greater position I have on that, because you have a lot of MMA instructors that have never fought MMA, but you see them participate in coaching guys in MMA and coaching them well, coaching them effectively. My take on it is it's really the legacy that I look at, the integrity of what it is that you do. If you're somebody who is, I'll take a John Danaher as an example. John Danaher, who I know plenty of his black belts. I've never met him. A good friend of mine, got his black belt from John Danaher, and he just raves about the guy. The guy is so nice. He's a genius. He's an innovator, very open-minded, very humble. And you see John Danaher has helped, countless people in MMA fights. To the best of my knowledge, John Danaher has never competed. For me to say that, he's never competed, so he's never going to be able to coach somebody is illogical. Like the proof is in the pudding. He's already produced, results in his ability to coach MMA. But the thing is now, how many people are going, so does he become the example of what somebody should aspire to in order to be an effective MMA coach? I think his model, his example is the exception. I think in terms of the timeline, I just wrote an email this morning for the Master Chim letter. And I was talking about, how you should, make sure your son doesn't hate you. Right. And one of the things I asked was, well, what is it? What do you do? What do you do so that, your son has something to model his behavior after? And it's that sort of congruence that I'm looking to establish when I say that if you're training MMA, you should have fought. Another thing is, I've experienced what it's like to get in there and do the thing, as have you, Pat, as has Anthony, as has Angel, as has Goose, as has all the guys that are part of the Jungle Gym. Well, when a student asks us, what that experience is like, we understand what it's like. When the student asks us, what goes through your head, we could share what went through our head during the experience. People who haven't gone through that can only ever share theory. they could probably get it right if prepared properly and given the information. But it's that sort of understanding, that connection with the experience that, getting in there and having done it, just it can't be replaced, So I'm very leery to say, this guy's never fought. He sucks. Don't go to him. What I will point out is that his position is already limited, because he hasn't, had that experience. He hasn't. And a lot of times the guys who haven't had that experience haven't even been a part of that culture, So you talk about John Danaher. John Danaher is one of Renzo's black belts, and he was in, Renzo has been a powerhouse in New York City for 20 years, over 20 years. So to grow up in that culture, you are definitely more adequately prepared than somebody who was, let's say, a Taekwondo competitor and decided to coach MMA. The whole culture is foreign to him. You know what I mean?
He's going to kill him. Coach, he's going to kill him. Best of the best.
Best of the best. No, Danny, no.
He's going to kill him. Eric Roberts.
No, but it was Danny, right? The guy who was going to kill the other guy?
Yeah, Danny.
Yeah, Danny, no. He was screaming all fucking over dramatic.
Hysterical. Taekwondo.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, what else we got here? I find professors who talk about just winning tournaments annoying. Don't get me wrong, you test your might, but how effective is the teachings related to self-defense? I look now to what will help me survive a fight in life effectively. I want to be challenged to become a better man overall. That's more in line with what my academy is about, Danny. The thing is, there are people who say, nah, you know what? I just want to put on the gi and I want to win trinkets. I want to go Saturday and I want to get a medal and I want to wear it. I want to take a picture and I want to put my medal on my wall. So I have all my medals. So if you meet me and you don't know I'm a good man, I could go, see, I'm a good man. So there are some people who do that, and it's not our position, it's not our place to tell them whether that's good or bad. We have to be indifferent to to other people's missions. We just have to respond to those instances where their missions affect ours. If somebody is in my school and saying, listen, I just do this because I want to win tournaments, that's fine right up until he doesn't want to participate in the rituals that we have developed, to maintain our group mission. We've had guys who say like, listen, I don't like getting punched in the face. I just want to do gi grappling. I hate what I hate as a jiu-jitsu guy. I hate I just want to do jiu-jitsu. It's like, what the fuck do you think? Like, they're telling me they just want to do jiu-jitsu as if they have a better understanding of what jiu-jitsu is than I do. You look at every old school jiu-jitsu tape, all of them fucking fought, the Gracie challenge matches. Like, it wasn't, you get your gi and I get my gi and let's have a gi match. And that was the Gracie challenge. Like, the Gracies took on whoever the fuck showed up in whatever type of fighting style they had. And it's just a different mindset, but the coaches, when I see school owners who the entire identity of their school is competition, is tournament, I don't, judge them as people, like, listen, it is what it is. Like, I know a guy who goes and he fixes people's toilets all day. He's a plumber and that's what he does. And I can't say, oh, well, he's a plumber, so, what he's doing isn't, valuable because it's not what I'm doing with my life. Like, it becomes too incongruent at that point. But if somebody is, running one of the things that gets me going, one of my peeves are the people who are tournament schools and they're getting people ready for tournaments to win all the trinkets. And they want to have the warrior talk and they want to talk about, or you get the one, remember that one video where the guy like pulled like De La Riva guard on the black guy on the basketball court?
Yeah, and they got him in a heel hook.
Yeah, and he was like, and people were saying, "Oh, so I guess tournament jiu-jitsu doesn't work in the street." It's like, are you fucking serious? Like, are you really serious? This is what you're holding as the example of the
Gayest fight ever.
the reality effectiveness of sport jiu-jitsu?
The guy was like, "I got your ankle. You better tap." It's like, what is going on right now?
What should have happened was you let go and the guy hit him over the head with something. That would have been perfect. Because it would have been a reminder for people what reality is.
Or when his bag shot him in the face.
Right. So the thing that I can't stand is when these people are tournament schools. And if you're a tournament school, like, listen, do you, boo-boo? You know, like, if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. But don't start saying, you know, it's like then the warrior talk and the, you know, everything's fucking emotionally monumental and, you know, like it's fucking bullshit. It's bullshit. And I don't even know if I'm making my point very articulately, but you know, the thing is, if you are going to be about a warrior's identity, you know, the role of a warrior is somebody who does whatever's necessary to protect himself and his tribe. You know, to say that any sport is going to prepare you for that in its entirety is ridiculous. You know, like I already said, you know, with me and my school, I think competition's very important because it's one of the sort of slices of the pie. You know, it's not something that is going to be the end-all be-all of preparing people to defend their homes, to defend themselves against invaders, to defend themselves in the street in a reality-based situation. You know, somebody who says competition training is going to do that for you is either lying or just stupid. You know, they don't have the information, you know, because the information's out there, you know. So,
or he's selling something.
Right. You know, he's full of shit. You know, he's lying. And that's the thing. You know, it's that incongruence that I'm more perturbed about, you know.
It was Tommy, not Danny.
Tommy. That's right. Tommy, no! He's screaming. Because he changed the heel. His killer Korean kick, whatever the fuck that was.
Coach, he's gonna kill him.
He's gonna kill him. His shoulder was fucked up. Oh, epic. All right.
Solid movie.
Read this from Ricardo, Pat, please.
Master teachers may not be the best warriors anymore in terms of strength and stamina, but their knowledge and experience can be much more effective than raw strength.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes up a lot when I'm talking about black belts, right? So I have, to the best of my knowledge, 2 black belts of mine that I was their instructor from start to finish. And that is Chris and Anthony, right? Chris Lothian and Anthony Sepulveda, who is Coach Anthony, Master Anthony, you guys will hear me talk about. And
Sepulveda.
But both of them were people who started from scratch with me, eventually got to black belt level, and they represent probably the most sort of directly my identity as a martial artist. So when I get older and I get to the point where I cannot physically do the things that I could still physically do, to think that I cannot prepare people to become black belts doesn't make sense. There's this notion in martial arts, and it's a very slippery slope because integrity is a component that needs to be maintained. But there's this notion in martial arts that, you know, oh, when he's a black belt, you know, he should be able to kick people's asses. There's a certain performance, you know, that people want to associate with being a black belt. Well, in an art like jiu-jitsu, it is very attribute based. So let's talk about Elio Gracie. When Elio Gracie passed, and he passed in his 90s, there's no way. There were probably white belts in the academy that could submit him. And at no point would anybody think that that should be the test as to whether or not Elio gets to keep his black belt. So if there's not a point when people lose their ability to perform that we remove the black belt, then I think it is inconsistent to say that any performance test is a prerequisite to acquiring a black belt. The way that I put it usually is, to get a black belt, there are certain points, right? There's like a minimum point number that people have to accumulate. And how you accumulate those points varies from person to person. Sometimes it's very heavily based in performance. It's very hard to say that somebody shouldn't be a black belt who goes and wins the black belt world championships, let's say. Well, competitively, he's the best black belt. Probably should be a black belt. But maybe he can't coach worth the shit. Do we remove the black belt or do we refrain from giving him the black belt because he can't coach? Not necessarily. Or you have somebody who has, competition anxiety, right? The guy who is incredible, in the school, but when he goes to compete and he's getting ready, for the tournament and he shows up and, they call his name, he starts getting the jitters, and then, 10% of who he actually is winds up showing up on the mat. Do I prevent him from not getting a black belt? Not necessarily. Everybody's different, and people accumulate those pieces of the pie differently, and in different ratios, right? And when you talk about master teachers, as Ricardo put it, there's a level of understanding, there's a depth of understanding of the spirit of a thing that comes with repetition, that comes with time. It doesn't come with innovation. It doesn't come with variety. It doesn't come with a diverse approach to accomplishing the same task. It comes to a depth of understanding that is attributed to a commitment to a technique's execution. And that understanding, like who I am, like my cross choke now compared to my cross choke, when I first started. I could choke somebody when I first started, but the cross choke that I use now is a master's level cross choke compared to that cross choke. That one worked, but this one, much more efficient, much more effective. I could handle much more adversity or obstacles when doing it, objections, opponents' objections to the techniques, right? I can disarm. But the whole thing is, I didn't learn that understanding, that depth of understanding of this technique because I learned other chokes, because I learned fancy chokes. I learned different chokes. I learned a variety of chokes. Like those chokes don't make that cross choke better, right? It's funny. I was watching I was hanging out with Two on Tom, and there was a picture of me and somebody else, with our hands up. It was like it was just a friendly picture, or whatever. And Two on Tom commented, he was like, you could tell you fought, and you could tell he doesn't, and it was because there's just an understanding of how to do things where you look more like a natural version of whatever it is that you're trying to, resemble. And with master instructors, they're the ones that could create the entire next generation. They're the ones that have a level of depth of understanding that a percentage of which is going to be transferred to that new generation. So if you're somebody who just has a shallow understanding of the spirit of a thing, the spirit of a technique, when you pass that on, it becomes shallower still. And then it becomes the game of telephone. Then we start talking about the cargo cult, phenomenon that we see in martial arts schools, where people, they have such a low level of understanding or exposure to a technique. It's almost as if they just saw it and then they did it. They saw it, then they did it. And that level of understanding is as shallow a level as you're going to get. And when you talk about master instructors, my level of understanding in the things that I teach is not such that I have such a high level of expertise at doing them per se. I got a lot of guys, you're one of them, Pat, that are incredibly effective with triangle chokes. I've always said, if I have a fully locked out triangle choke on you, you're probably a 9-year-old little boy, because at 10, you're just too wide for me to close my legs in a triangle on. But I have over 15 years experience turning on the triangle light bulb over people's heads. I have over 15 years experience finding a way for people who are having difficulty with their triangle to get back on course and back on mission with the development of their triangle. That's the experience I have. So for somebody to say that, well, this guy shouldn't be a black belt. Why? Because I tapped him out, because I beat him up, because you have such a low-level, superficial understanding of what a master level, participant should be, that it's almost like your opinion isn't even valid. Like you're not even qualified to have that opinion. It's like listening to, the geopolitical situation and what should be done from my 5-year-old. He has opinions, but where are we going to place those opinions? So when I hear people talking about, well, black belts should be able to beat everybody up, I understand who they are, where they are in their journey, that they see things that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
And you also have people who develop black belts who then get to the point where they think they shouldn't be a black belt because people who are much younger than them and who train every single day start tapping them out.
That's crazy.
And then they're going, you know what? I don't feel like I should be a black belt. Well, okay, I guess. It's going to be hard holding on to it, though, because eventually you're going to get so fucking old that, the wind is going to fucking take you down, And, this is, if that's how you're tracking your progress, then, it's pitiful, because it means that you're still seeing things at such a low level, that you're missing everything that you should already be fucking tracking. You should already be developing these other abilities and skills in these other positions. There's a reason, I go and, I have this fucking band of midgets in my school now. I got a bunch of 25ers, 35ers, 45ers, and I got 2-3 guys bigger than that. But the bulk of my fighters, my MMA competitors, are at these smaller weights. These aren't people that I could train with every day, And even if I was in, let's say, competition shape, right? Let's say I'm 200 pounds. I'm still a 200-pound dude training with them. So if I don't have the ability to lead them to these techniques and lead them to the understanding of these techniques, then I'm not worth, my weight, in anything as a coach, because it's not about being able to do the thing when you're talking about coaching. It's about being able to turn those light bulbs on over people's heads, and that very, very often has little to do with of what you do and what you're good at. Sometimes what you're good at lends itself to what you really understand. That being said, it's really, the things that I do effectively when I roll, I certainly have a better understanding than some other things, but, I'm going to be able to teach you how to tear somebody's shoulder off, probably to a deeper understanding than I am going to be able to teach you how to triangle somebody, from fucking inverted guard. Conceptually, I understand it. I've never done it, but I've coached plenty of people who have done it effectively. And that's the process. There are things that guys like you, Anthony, Bat Boy, Goose, like you guys have taught me, because I started you at a certain level, and then you took it and developed a level or depth of understanding that surpassed my own. And in those instances, that's when the master becomes the student. Because part of this process, right, which some black belts seem to have forgotten, part of this process is that I'm never going to be the one that understands everything the most, nor do I ever want to be that guy. I never want to be that guy. I never want to be the guy that says, well, my level of understanding in these 100 techniques is so deep that this level, this technique that you're good at, that's not in my 100, that you understand deeply, I'm not going to listen to you because I know more than you do. You only know this one thing, and I know this thing. I remember Ryan Hall, right? He's a UFC fighter now, which is like, it's so fucking weird. But Ryan Hall, I've known for a lot of years, and I had him come in and do a seminar once. The only reason I wanted him to come and do the seminar, and Ryan Hall, I mean, he's going to do a good seminar, whatever he teaches. But my own selfish, purposes for having him come in was to learn how to get out of an inverted heel hook. That's all I wanted to learn from the 50-50 position. 50-50, inverted heel hook, I want to know how to get out of it. And he taught a seminar. Everybody enjoyed it. It was 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it was. I got that one little bit of information. That's all I wanted to know, because that's what I needed. That's that level of understanding that I was developing. And it's not, like I remember when he came with one of his students, and they had a long weekend. I think Ryan was getting over a knee injury, and he was like, look, would you mind if we didn't roll at the end of the seminar? I'm like, I don't care if you never roll again. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not here to roll with you. You're like, the people that go to seminars, I'm going to go to seminar because I'm going to get to roll with him. What are you doing? I guess there's some novelty to it, but that's all it is. It's novelty, I remember I had a buddy of mine come in and teach a seminar once. And at the end of the seminar, he was burnt. And one of my students, you remember this, one of my students who, in his defense, didn't fucking know any better, asks him to roll. And the guy's exhausted. He just taught an incredible seminar, like a 3-hour solid block of instruction. He's fucking burnt. My guy's also like 50 pounds heavier than him. And my guy asked him to roll, but this guy says yes. He's always going to say yes. And when they started rolling, my guy's going after him like he's a maniac. I had to pull him to the side eventually and go, what are you doing? This guy's fucking exhausted. And now my guy is like, oh, I just wanted to train. He's so good. I just wanted to, to roll. And I'm like, that's not what he's here for. I said, if you want to train, go to his fucking school and train with him. Go compete against him. When he signs up for a tournament, go and compete. Like, now is not the time. This isn't what he's here for. So it's really just, I think ultimately the one relative concept that ties everything together is congruence. Being congruent in what you want, who you go to get it, and an understanding of whether or not they have the ability to provide, what they say they can,
Yeah, and you were saying, like, you get the instructors that say, I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything I know, which is a fundamental mistake,
Right.
Trying to keep the students below you at all times. That's a failing formula.
Right. And, that's another thing. I remember the guy that owned the school I first trained at, he stopped training with people very early on in their development, and it was usually around the time where they would catch him. And it's not to say that they were better than him, but I remember when I first submitted him, it was a problem for him, and he internalized it in a way that I wasn't even anticipating nor tracking. Like, to me, it's just training. I remember I played sports my whole life. I could run faster than my football coach. I couldn't out wrestle my wrestling coach. He'd fuck me up, but my baseball, I had a better arm than my baseball coach. Like, I played a bunch of different sports that I was more proficient, certainly at that time, but maybe ever, than the coaches who were teaching me the game. And it was never an issue because that's not what they're there for. They're the shaman. They're the ones to remind the people of what the rituals are, how to stay consistent and congruent. They have the warrior aspect in terms of how to strategize and implement, what it is that we're doing in this tribe. But the whole thing is, at no point did I ever think they had to be better than me. They had to, because then I'm not trying to get better. I'm just trying to get better than him. And those are two totally different things. Like I always tell the guys that, that after a while when they compete and, they got their trinkets and I see it starts to go to their head, I remind them, like, listen, you can go to a tournament and, there's 5 of the people in your bracket and they all fucking suck. Well, you know what? You suck +1 at a minimum, but you might suck too, but you just suck a little less than everybody else sucks that particular day. You can go on another day and there's 5 of the people in your bracket, in your division, and they're all fucking animals. They're beasts. They're fucking just world-class killers. And you get your ass kicked. Do you suck? Probably not. You're world-class -1. So it's the flaw of comparing yourself to other people. And, when you get the guys who they want to train, and when they first start training, they succumb to the process because they come in, they take a trial, they get their ass kicked. They realize this is what this is, and they still sign up. So they say, they take their ego at that point and they put it on the shelf. But a lot of them, the first time they get good at something, the first time they become proficient at one aspect of what it is that we do, they take some of that ego off the shelf and they put it right back in their pocket. And the next thing you know, you have somebody that at one point in his development was rolling with everybody, was training with everybody, was getting tapped out, was tapping other people out, was just installing new things, was open-minded and helpful to his teammates. That person turns into the guy who doesn't roll with that guy, doesn't want to roll with that guy, is avoiding that guy. And, one of the things I've always done on the mat is as soon as I notice that, those are the two that are rolling.
Yep, 100%.
And it goes to all the way up from the black belts on the mat. Sometimes guys would be like, listen, like there's times I'll be like, this guy's just too fucking big. I'm gonna wind up popping the rib. Like I got a tournament coming up. So there's smart training, obviously, but the people who are just, I don't want to roll with him because I might get tapped out. Like that is never going to be a productive way to be. And it's really up to the environment. That then the value of tribe comes in. What does the tribe do in those situations? Because a lot of times it's a very awkward conversation. And if it's an awkward conversation, that means that you don't know how the guy's going to react to it. And so either if you're just worried about running a business or you're just worrying about getting along and you don't give a fuck about the guy's development, then you know what? You don't have that conversation. Hey, man, no problem. Do what you want. That's what winds up happening. And that's these shallow relationship type environments that people, they feel great in because everybody, is telling them they're great because nobody gives a shit about whether they actually are or not. It's like going to a fucking whorehouse and going, man, I'm killing it tonight. It's like, yeah, you're with a bunch of fucking whores. Go to a regular, social establishment and do the same thing. And then you have a better indication of where you stand. But to go to a whorehouse and then want the credit for doing well with the ladies, kind of disingenuous.
Yeah, 100%.
So what else is going on? Gene LaBelle is one of the most awesome masters I've ever met. Humble. Gene LaBelle, Judo Gene LaBelle. I've never met him. He's one of those guys, like on the short list of people I would love to meet. Old school dude, pro wrestler, judo competitor. He's the guy that the rumor is that he choked Steven Seagal unconscious on the set of one of his movies.
And supposedly Steven Seagal shit himself.
Yeah. I was going to leave that part out, but yeah. He relieved himself.
He evacuated.
Yeah, but just an old school dude and one of these guys, one of the things that it's so important. And you look, especially online now, authenticity, right? Authenticity. Having somebody who, because of how they conduct themselves, because of what they do, they are not hiding their intentions. You know that who you see is what you get. And it's one of the things that I've always prided myself on, is that, I don't avoid topics. I don't, mince words. I've gotten better, but if I got to throw an F-bomb in there, I throw an F-bomb in there, bombs away, right? And some of the people that you'll see online, you automatically know they're full of shit. You automatically know they're hiding something. And I'd say the biggest travesty is when you have somebody who's otherwise an authentic, genuine person following the model of behavior that somebody told him he has to follow, and he winds up coming off sounding like a cheesy fucking salesman every single time he opens his mouth. Like one of these snake oil salesmen, with the, I want everybody to go online and see how many ads you see for, secret revealed, secret unlocked, there's all these phrases and keywords that you're like, oh God, like I could show you books that have lists of these words. These are power words. These are persuasion words. These are the things that get people to act. It's like, learn how to talk effectively, and then be yourself. That's my advice, but when you get a guy, and this is segueing off of talking about Gene LaBelle, he's somebody that, you just know he is being real, Bas Rutten, another example. Bas Rutten, like when he's conducting himself as an interviewer, as a commentator, you just know that's who he is, And then you get other people like the more polished sportscasters, the people who have gone to the schools, who have come out of the factories of sportcasting factories, the news people. You just know they're full of shit because they all look the same way. They use the same phrases. They have the same inflection in their voices, and they're just a product of that preparatory process, becoming a sportscaster, a newscaster, whatever the fucking case is, And I think people who are authentic are always more well received than people who are fraudulent, All right, what else? Read that, Pat, please.
Makes me think about people who think just because I was once in the military makes me a total badass. Laugh out loud. I've gotten my butt handed to me plenty of times. A class gives you knowledge, action gives you success.
Absolutely. And to continue that sentiment somewhat, the people that are in the military, like I think one of the most impressive things about them is not their ability, is not their training, is not their even their experience. It's their commitment. That's the thing that I think when it comes to the military is most impressive. I think, and having trained various levels of the military over the years, you're going to be disappointed if you think just because somebody has a military uniform on that they're Rambo, and that they're, you throw them in the jungle and, they're going to come back with all these ears on their necklace and the enemy is just like, it's not the way it works. The thing that's admirable about people who join the military is that they are signing their life to the mission of the military. And that, can't be overlooked. But when it comes to the training aspect of it, I'm very rarely disappointed in these people's physical abilities because I don't hold them to that standard. That's not the expectation that I have for somebody who's in the military. But it really is experience. I think the process needs to be looked at for what it is. One of the things that does piss me off is when you get the guy who did 2 years in the fucking, in the military and then comes out and wants to just throw it at everybody's face as if, he won't get punched in his fucking mouth because, he was serving fucking chow to lines of soldiers for 2 years in Iraq somewhere. you get the guys nowadays that they, it's almost like they bring the trinket mentality, to something as reputable and admirable as the military and military service. There was a time where you just, the guys didn't have to talk about it. You almost didn't even know they served, or, talk about like World War II veterans. Like, these fucking guys saw like just Armageddon, some of them, and, they're just regular dudes and they get around their guys and they'll reconnect, but it's not something that they just wear right here. Everybody honor me. I fought in the military, and like, it's not something that was part of that culture. But nowadays you see a lot more of that, and as somebody who talks a lot about a warrior lifestyle, a warrior mindset, I run into the guys that are like, oh, you never even served. And it's like, listen, I have probably gotten into more fights than you have. I've probably been shot at more than you have. I probably shot at people more than you have. Figuratively speaking. But the thing is, if this is a pissing contest, then we shouldn't even be having a conversation, And I think when you don't look at what these experiences are individually in and of themselves, it's easy to get lost in, well, this guy was in the military, so not only is he the only one that could talk about warrior stuff, but he must be an incredible warrior. And it's just a bunch of things that are conflated, I don't think it helps anybody in the process,
Not at all.
Hit this one, Pat. Big Chad.
The spirit of these competitions is to allow tribe mates for those tribes in alliance with one another test their mettle of the competing warriors and tribes without the threat of death or war ensuing, not for trophies.
Right, and there's a real world benefit to competition. It's exactly what he said, and like, people wonder, like, what's the purpose of a trophy? Well, that's the positive reinforcement, right? That's the conditioning aspect of the process that makes people want to do it. It takes a certain level of maturity in understanding the process of, personal development to get to the point where you don't need the positive reinforcement, where the benefit is the reinforcement in and of itself. There's a minimum level of maturity, before that takes effect. So everybody else gets the dog biscuits. That's what the trinkets are, the little dog biscuits. Sit, dog sits, good job. And that is what those things are. It's why they made color belts in martial arts. It's why you have participation trophies. That is now that same positive reinforcement process scaled up to a dysfunctional level. Talk about function first. There's a certain point where, they're like, we have the joke, we spoke about it before in STG, the good job card, right?
Yeah.
And it's when somebody sort of loses their way momentarily and either is recruiting, consolation, or recruiting, congratulations, and we immediately check them, and mind you, it's happened to me before, so it's not like, yeah, these young idiots, I gotta show, like, it's just a lapse. And sometimes, it happens to us all. That's the benefit, by the way, of tribe, right? Tribe matters. It's why we're there, right? Because the tribe will keep you in line. But one of the things that happens is we don't even need to hear good job. If your wife does something for you, right? And she goes out of her way and she does it. Women are very emotional creatures. Most women, obviously not any of you women that are watching right now. You guys are perfect. Other women I'm talking about, very, very emotional creatures. So emotion requires an investment of emotion sometimes to control it, and or to mitigate it. And let your wife go out of her way to do something and you don't acknowledge it, you got a fucking problem. Now, I will say, like, my wife, who's incredible, there are a lot of things that she does that I don't even mention. And one of the things, one of the reasons I don't mention these things for is because, she's got to do this every day for the rest of our lives. Am I supposed to act like every single time she's gone out of her way to do this? When I come back from work, I don't expect everybody to get up and go, "Thank you, Father. Thank you for making a living." And once again, filling the refrigerator with food. I don't expect that. It's me doing my role. And my wife, who does an incredible amount for me, there's plenty of things that I don't thank her for whenever she does it, because that's part of her job. It's part of her role. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate it. It doesn't mean I don't value it. But it's not something, at this point, she shouldn't need the positive reinforcement. The benefit should be the reinforcement enough, And where that line is, she and I never agree on. By the way, but I go by my line. It is what it is.
I take care of my kids. You're supposed to take care of your kids.
Supposed to take care of your kids. You can't get credit for something you're supposed to do.
I was watching the first season of The Office, and you ever see that show?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. I thought so, but when he gets in trouble, Michael Scott gets in trouble because he did that routine. the cultural sensitivity guys there.
Oh yeah,
hysterical. Really funny stuff.
Matt says, "Not sure why, but I always loved the cross collar chokehold. It was like seeing a light bulb for the first time to me." Yeah, one of the power projects I'm going to be doing, the power programs I'm going to be doing for the member site is on chokes, and I think the guys will get a kick out of it.
That's going to be awesome.
It's probably not going to be June. June, I have a power program in the works that's going to be incredible.
Wait a second. There's a power program every month?
Every month, and they're pretty fucking good, let me tell you.
That Reactionary Gap was fucking awesome.
Yep. Last month was Reactionary Gap. This month, I'm going to tell people what I'm doing. I won't say who it is, but I'm terrible at keeping secrets about this stuff. I'm getting 18 men, and each man is going to, and these are all friends of mine, former guests, and whatnot. Each one is going to make a 5-minute video answering a question. And the question that I chose, let me actually want to read it verbatim, because I gave them a bunch of rules, guidelines, so that it was consistent amongst the people. And I must find it. It is, okay, the question is, what is the most significant weakness you had to overcome in your life to become a better man?
Good question.
Yeah, great. I thought it was a very solid question. 100%. And the rules are that they start a 5-minute timer, they press record, and they go. 5 minutes max. So we have 18 guys doing that. And right off, I'm not going to say the names. I shouldn't say that. But a lot of cool people, not some people that you'd expect, some people that you would hope for. But I'm going to do one. Pat's going to do one. And then 16 other people, and one of them's going to be 2 on top, obviously.
2 on top. I've heard of him.
He's like the adjunct professor, right? Is that how you say that? Right. So, all right, what else is going on here? Herman says it's always best to put the ego on the shelf when training, no matter what it is. Absolutely. He says in powerlifting, it's the ego lifts that get you injured. Yeah, and, there's something to be said for, pushing the envelope and training aggressively and getting injured. Something else to say that, you're just doing things for ego with no real strategy, no real process in mind, and getting injured under those circumstances. Because you want to be able to validate the effectiveness, the planning, the strategic value or worth of a thing when you're training. And if you're just doing things just because you want to show off, or just because you want the approval of people that are around you, well, that's the slave's mind, right? That gets into, all the things that we want to avoid, Big Anthony, what's up, Anthony? He says, as a veteran, a very low percentage of us have actually been in combat. We may have served in a war zone, which has merit, but it is not the same thing. Yeah, and and the thing is, with people who get in the military, like, I don't even like getting into those distinctions. Like, listen, you signed on the line, like, you deserve credit for that.
Yeah.
But the minute they now want to start sabotaging or trying to denigrate other people's value, like, well, now we got to dissect it, okay? As soon as you're the guy who's now applying for fucking PTSD benefits and you were never in a fucking combat zone, like, now I got to pull your card. We got to talk about that bullshit,
Yeah.
But, like, I never want to be in a position where I'm criticizing veterans, where, oh, you didn't do enough. You didn't do shit. You did, like, I don't want to fucking do that. There's no fucking point in that. I like that we have a culture that people still enlist for the fucking military. I at one point, wish, but it would have been nice if I got a chance to go into the military and serve, like my father did, like my grandfather did, but it wasn't in the cards. I was being too violent as a young man to make the process easy on me. All right. Hit this one, Pat.
Do you have any advice on running an online business and how to get better at it? I custom design things at this point, but how do you develop more traffic to get people to buy and trust your product?
Is Danny a member of the Warrior Project?
I don't know. I can find out.
Well, if you are a member, oh, look at Chad. Chad's fucking on it, right above him. Have you seen the Business of Building power program in the member section? It's designed to allow you to start seeing things in the proper context. And when it comes to a business, the books I suggest, what did Chad write here? Also, the Russell Brunson books, .com Secrets and Expert Secrets, are awesome. I haven't read those. I'm a big fan of the E-Myth Revisited, Michael Gerber, reading that. And it's really, very similar to what I was talking about with joining a martial arts school, finding out what it is that you want, what it is that you're doing, and being able to see things for what they are and not be distracted by, shiny objects and such. You have to know what a business is, what the process is, what you're trying to develop and design. The Business of Building program in the member site, is designed just for this purpose, to be able to allow you to conceptualize what a business is effectively. So I would definitely suggest watching that in the member site. I think Danny's a member, but I don't know. We have a couple hundred members.
He says no.
I lose track. He says no?
Yeah.
Well, number one, if you want to run a successful business, you have to join the Warrior Project.
Naturally.
That's first and foremost, okay? Easy sale. Yeah, but if you're not a member, then, just get E-Myth Revisited, I'm a big fan of Think and Grow Rich. Big fan of the 4-Hour Work Week. But these get into specific things. What was that, Pat?
Tribes. Seth Godin.
Tribes. Well, Tribes could be a little different because Seth Godin's book. Put it this way: Tribes is awesome. I wouldn't put it right there yet.
Understood.
Like, there's some things you got to get through before you start talking about Tribes, in my opinion. But Danny, you should definitely check it out. Check out those books and give a membership a try. The membership on the Warrior Project, guys, it's $47 a month. You could literally join for a month, watch every power program, and cancel your membership. I don't have any problem with that. With the Business of Building, If I was going to sell the program, the individual power programs are going to, and Pat and I are unrolling, these changes as time goes on. Eventually, every one of the power programs will be for purchase, right? It'll be available to people who aren't members, but they'll be $47 each, right? So joining the site, it costs you no extra money, and you can check that out. You can check out all the other ones while you're there. You can participate while you're a member on the tribe page, the Warrior Project tribe page on Facebook, where you can ask questions, and myself, other people will be able to chime in and answer. But it's definitely something worth an investment.
100%.
Right. Chaz says, MC, speaking of Russell's books, you asked me about them not long ago. I have an extra copy of each. I'm happy to mail them to you. Yeah, I'll check them out. Absolutely. I don't want to put you out any, but I appreciate it. Crom laughs at your 4 wins. You're reading that, Pat.
You don't hear about paramilitaries complaining about the PTSD so much, but nationalized armies, it's like a sympathy card. Is it real? Yes, but soldiers who are professional, motivated, and want the fight, say a provisional, versus an 18-year-old that wants to go to college is different. People join up thinking this will be great, but deep down, many national armies are full of soldiers not committed to any cause.
I agree.
Period threw me off.
The thing is, systems incentivize a culture. Systems incentivize a reality, an environment. And when you look at all of the people who abuse, whether intentionally or otherwise, abuse the benefits that our society provides for people in need, I think you need to sort of categorize it as a falsely incentivizing system. So the people that are in the military that are getting benefits, PTSD benefits, that haven't even been in a combat zone, I'm obviously very critical of, because I'd say the overwhelming majority of them have to be full of shit. But I will say, and this is an interesting point, that some people believe themselves to be victimized to such a high level that they actually do not understand how they are engaged in a self-fulfilling prophecy. There are people who, I was just interviewing a guy last night, and he's one of the representatives of the Sightlanders organization in South Africa. And not getting into too much of the interview, because you guys should watch or listen to the interview, he was talking about that right now in South Africa, 1 in 3 women is raped. 1 in 3 women is raped. 1 in 3. Fucking incredible. So if you see that 1 in 3 women is raped, you would expect 1 in 3 of the women to be completely just fucking, ineffective citizens, like just traumatized and fucked up and on meds, in therapy, dysfunctional, but you don't see that. And it's obviously a travesty. It's obviously disgusting and despicable and all those things. But one of the things that, we could find a positive, to help other people is that the fact that 1 in 3 women is not completely debilitated in South Africa is a testament to a significant portion of those women saying, I'm not going to let this define me, and continuing to do what they functionally need to do. There's a lot of women who, because they are mothers, they have a bottom line that surpasses their own dedication and commitment to their own safety and identity because of those children. I don't know mothers, or many mothers, who wouldn't fucking lay their life down in an instant for their children, their comfort in an instant for their children, their food, their warmth, anything that accommodates them and comforts them and empowers them, they would immediately give to their children, because that's what being a mother is, by design. So when you look at these systems here in America, why is it that we see so many people, abusing, what's available to them in terms of benefits? Why is it that we see so many people, taking advantage of the charity of other well-intentioned people? It's because the systems incentivize it. The systems allow for that to be an example of a winning formula. I have a friend of the family who, this guy, he worked his whole life, I guess decided at one point just didn't want to work anymore. Went into a homeless shelter, got put from the homeless shelter into a housing, like an apartment. And the apartment that he's in is for the mentally ill. This guy's not mentally ill, at least not by the textbook, definition of mentally ill. He was told by somebody in the shelter, listen, if you want to get an apartment, say you hear voices. So he told people that he hears voices. There's nothing wrong with this fucking guy. But in order to get this apartment, he said that he heard voices, and they give him his apartment. They give him Section 8 status. I think his rent is like fucking $50 a month, Now he's got a TV, he's got video games, he's got a whole bunch, he's sitting on a high horse. Now, why is it that he would do any of this? Obviously, because he has no fucking sense of self-worth or pride. But that being said, it works.
Yeah.
This guy lived in a homeless shelter, said he heard voices, he got an apartment out of it. Where in history can you stop working, stop taking care of your house, go somewhere, say you hear voices, and be given everything that you can get nowadays? It's incentivized behavior. And I think when designing systems, and I deal with this intimately when helping business owners, one of the things that we do is we sit down and we look at the systems of their business, and we ask, we find out, we deduce, we observe what behavior this system currently incentivizes. Does it incentivize loyalty? Does it incentivize participation, recruitment, referrals? What does it incentivize? And if there are things that we want to be present that aren't present, how do we incentivize those things to occur? And vice versa. How do we eliminate, and reduce certain behaviors by disincentivizing them? And that's what that process is. So I think the more we let people get away, and see, the thing is, it's very hard, and it's ironic because the people that usually want to do most to help others are, they consider themselves the most sympathetic, empathetic to other people, but they actually are just looking at reality through their own eyes because they're thinking, this would help me. If I was them, this would help me. If I was them, this would empower me to get to where I needed to be, to fix whatever problem that I have. And the only thing worse than going by their own standards is actually thinking they can read the minds of the people they're affecting. The only thing that matters is the actual behavior, is the actual real-world observable metrics that the system is exposing you to. It doesn't matter what you think is going to happen, what you think is right or wrong or whatever. Results is the only thing that matters, and that's where people, I think, really get mixed up. You see all the people who are in the military who are applying for PTSD benefits, and they haven't been in combat, and you'll have people saying, well, why is it that they're being affected this way, that they're getting PTSD? I think a better question is, why haven't we just made it a mandatory rule? If you haven't seen combat, you're not getting PTSD benefits.
That would make sense.
what does that incentivize and disincentivize? It incentivizes more guys wanting to see action, so you get more, encouraged, excited, committed, members of the military, and it disincentivizes fraud and bullshit, and weakness. Like they know that, you see homeless people on the street. They ask certain people for money. They don't ask certain people for money. Homeless people don't ask me for money, because they're like, no, this fucking guy's crazy. They look at me and they're like, nah, I'm good. Right? So I disincentivize that behavior, with how I conduct myself, and that's all we could ever do. We could, just disincentivize behaviors. And that's the name of the game when fixing so much of the shit that we're always talking about here,
Yeah.
Read that one. Big Sean.
Advice when writing a book and dealing with writer's block. I've been working on a kid's book for 6 years, and seems like every time I get rolling, I hit a huge writer's block.
All right. So, very good question. Here's the answer. There's no such thing as writer's block. There's no such thing as writer's block. And what I mean by that is there is some self-fulfilling prophecy when discussing writer's block with people. I would ask, how often do you write? You should be writing every day. Sometimes there will be a lack of inspiration in a particular subject or project that you're writing for. Write about something else. Write for something else. But every day you should be writing. The whole thing is when, and I think it's people's tendency to not look at the obvious. If we want to get stronger, we go to the gym. If we want to get better at jiu-jitsu, Sean's a black belt under my boy Sav. If you want to get better at jiu-jitsu, you go to the gym and you train. But for some reason, when it comes to things that are more mindset-based, when it comes to being happy or confident, people think it's just supposed to happen. When it comes to being creative, people think it's just supposed to happen. Every other thing that we want to improve upon in life, we already understand the process is sitting down and dedicating and investing training in that particular endeavor. Well, creativity in terms of writing is the same thing. You have to practice. You have to write every day. Write letters to your friends. Write long blog posts on your Facebook page or on a blog separately. And when you hit those times where you could creatively add to that book, then you go and do that. Another thing when it comes to writing a book, and I've written 2 books, I'm in the process of writing my 3rd, how much of a structure have you already established for that book before you started writing? One of the most difficult ways to write a book, in my experience and from what I've researched and found, is just starting at the beginning and ending at the ending, and just writing the thing like you're writing a letter to somebody. What I've done for the book that I'm writing now is I have chapters, I have subchapters, I have sub-subchapters, I have things incrementally designed, sort of like a skeleton, to the point where I just have to fill out these little areas with something that's so specific that it's not even long enough to run out of creativity, because I've done the work necessary to be able to structure it that way. And one of the great things about doing that is that you wind up having a well-designed story or a well-designed book at the end of the process, not something that sort of loses its way a couple times throughout the book and finds the conclusion eventually. And, being able to present things and laying them out the way that you want it ingested by the reader is definitely something that, you should look to do. But it takes me a long time to write, but 6 years, holy fuck, man. Like, I think fucking Ivanhoe was written in less than 6 years.
War and Peace.
War and Peace. Chad says, mail to the school? Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. Big Carlos. Thank you, brother. Crom laughs at the size of your screen. That's all you, Pat.
Okay. I will tell you from personal experience, 90% of people on disability for mental illness can work. I used to be on it. And of course, you can't survive on it. So I hustled on the side, sold weed. Years later, I lived on the streets for 3 years, got locked up for 3 years. He said I loved on the streets. I didn't have a debilitating illness. I wanted free money. You tell them what they want to hear, and they give it to you. What we have are functioning issues, lifestyle choices. I'm not that guy on the street anymore, but they can't bullshit me. I've been there, done that, so no excuses.
And there it is from the horse's mouth. I mean, all of these things are systems. You know, it's funny when you start talking about social engineering, persuasion, manipulation, in different applications of basically installing joysticks and buttons into your life, right? And being able to control more than you may think you can control. You realize that everything can be influenced somehow. And these systems nowadays especially are so easily influenced and so easily manipulated. It is to what I coin a dysfunctional level, right? So when we're doing something like I talked about earlier, participation trophies, having positive reinforcement applied to a dysfunctional level. Well, a kid wants to compete, right? Wants to play Little League. It's a team sport. It's physical, hand-eye coordination, a lot of benefits to kids playing sports, obviously. So him doing it is a good thing. So when he does a good thing, operant conditioning, you want to sort of give him something positive to reinforce the behavior. And it's something good, you know, like it's the fucking dog treat. And the thing is, when he's doing something and he is being rewarded to a point where he no longer wants to pursue the mission, well, now it is a dysfunctional level of reinforcement. If the dog, when you call his name, looks at you and you give him a fucking steak, you know, and then you ask him to roll around, you know, on the floor and you give him a steak, he's like, I got the fucking steak for just looking at you. Like, what the fuck am I going to do all this for? It's a dysfunctional level of reward. You know, so if somebody says, you know, they're hearing voices or somebody's saying something to just design a reward. Now, I don't have the answer for that particular system. You know, if I gave it some thought, I could probably put some shit together, you know, but the point is, it is clearly at a dysfunctional level. It is clearly beyond the level of intent that was invested into the system when it was designed, you know. And Crom, you know, I appreciate you sharing that, Crom. It's an exact, you know, testament to that right there, you know. Sean says, usually I ride on the weekends. That may be the issue. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one of the great quotes by Jim Rohn, one of my favorite mentors.
He's awesome.
And you guys should check out Jim Rohn. He's got a bunch of stuff on YouTube and stuff. He talks about time. He goes, you know, people say, and I'm paraphrasing him. I wish I could do his voice because he's so awesome. He goes, people say they don't have enough time. You don't have enough time. We all have the same amount of time. Like, we all have the same amount of time. I have 24 hours in a day. You have 24 hours in a day. So you can never say that you don't have enough time. Anybody that's ever done anything has done it with the same exact time you have, you know? So when it comes to writing, and I'm not fucking with you, Sean, you know, because I understand what you're saying, but just the greater point is there are ways to do it. One of the PAL programs I have, you know, waiting in the wings on the Warrior Project is a time management program where we talk about different ways to manage your time effectively, the different systems that I've used over the years, what's working for me now. But it comes down to what are you doing with your time? And you'll find that the more you adhere to a time management strategy, the more productive you become, but also the more you actually start enjoying the time management systems, because you realize that you have time for everything for once, which is very atypical for a lot of people. But definitely look into time management, look into Jim Rohn. And if you're not a member yet, join my fucking site, Sean. Cheap fuck.
I concur.
That's all you, Pat.
Do you believe in nature opening up your creative aspect of your mind? I was thinking about hiking this week to open my mind up for some writing and redesigning my website.
Well, let me answer it this way. I do, but let me articulate why. I think nature does a great job of removing blockages in who we are and how we think that are brought on by stress, by anxiety, by all of these sort of negative hiccups, in our mentality that the regular hustle and bustle of life are going to provide. Depending on where you are, what you do, where you live, who you're around, there's certainly a spectrum of an effect that it can have on you. But it's one of the things that I love the most about going on hikes or going fishing or riding my Harley. After this, it was starting to get nice out, right before I started the show. And I'm going to be on my Harley in an hour from now, and one of the things it does is it connects me to something that takes all those other things and sort of treats them like cobwebs. It just, it bats them down and removes them. So I'm relaxed again. One of the things I've done before is lifting weights. Great method I have for leveraging stress, and one of the things that I've always done is when I feel like putting my hand through somebody's face, go hit the weights, go hit the bag. Sometimes it was go to the park and play ball. Sometimes it was just go to the jiu-jitsu school and train, right? And these are things that remove the cobwebs. I think nature is probably, no pun intended, the most organic way to do that. I think that we tend to put things into greater perspective when connecting things to things like nature that is so much grander than we are, and it really just, again, it gives you, it reminds you of the perspective that we should all have when we wake up every day, that we're part of a huge puzzle, and there's so much more out there that it's almost a waste of time to get bogged down by the minutia, that so many people do wind up, tripping on from day to day,
Yeah. There's more in heaven and earth than dreamt of in your philosophy, Horatio.
White Boy Pat. Hashtag White Boy Pat.
Hamlet, yeah. It's a good one.
So, Hamlet.
Oh.
We got. I used to have a Dominican student named Hamlet. He told me his name. He goes, "My name is Hamlet." So I'm like, "What?
What?
Hamlet." I still don't know what the fuck you're saying. And he's like, so he goes, Hamlet. Hamlet? And he's like, yeah. I said, your mother named you after a fucking Shakespeare play? You know what his response was? Who's Shakespeare?
Who is this?
Said,
Where can I find
Are you fucking serious?
That's amazing.
This guy was a grown-ass man in his 20s, did not know that Hamlet was a Shakespeare play.
That's amazing.
I'm like, are you like, where are you from? You're the Dominican Republic.
Okay, now.
Got you up in the mountains, my friend.
That's really funny.
So I'm looking up another question I had here.
Sean just said he knows a guy named Maverick has never seen Top Gun. That's crazy.
Oh, my God. These fucking kids these days. What is it? Oh, I was just yelling at Leo and Paul the other day. Which one of them didn't see Braveheart?
Fuck. I remember, I don't think either of them saw Glory, but I forget which one had seen
Glory. Yeah, Glory I didn't see. Godfather I didn't see.
They need like.
I told Paul, I said, "What? You didn't see Glory? That's the Black Braveheart." I told him.
That's funny.
The Godfather they didn't see. Holy
Gotta
fuck.
help them out.
Who was it that didn't see Conan? Was it Leo?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, since we started the podcast, we always start talking about movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And, we're always talking about the podcast at the schools. And these guys are like, yeah, I never saw that. It's like, are you fucking crazy?
But
but
Alien vs. Predator was mentioned as one of the best movies.
oh,
That's my favorite. I still think that's terrible.
So terrible.
Gotta help them out. That's why we're here. Help.
So, before I get into this next question, PressureCon.
Yeah.
PressureCon is July 21st, 22nd, 23rd. It's a Friday evening, all day Saturday, half a day on Sunday. Right now, it is $397. Tomorrow, it goes to $497.
Midnight.
Now, if you are not, say again.
I said midnight.
Right, at midnight. If you are not a member of the site, you cannot attend. It is another reason to become a member. We have 2.5, 3 days planned of just incredible content. We are going to be doing not only the talks, we're going to have a pig roast. We're going to have a martial arts segment. We're going to be doing some violence training. I'm going to have other speakers there. I'm going to be there. Tom's going to be there. I have Guru Matt Campbell, one of the Sayakali instructors, one of the greatest martial artists I know, is going to be there. Augustus Invictus is going to be there. I believe Chris Jacchio is going to be there. I believe Alan Odinson is going to be there. We have a couple other guys I'm working on. I'm bringing, aside from the actual talks, the official talks, the experience of being able to hang out. Everybody that I just mentioned and everybody that's in attendance is very, very available the entire time. We're hanging out at the fire at night. We're talking at breakfast. We're bullshitting at lunch. We're going over some of the things that we discussed. We do a roundtable discussion. We'll be answering every questions. A couple of things that happened too that I was excited about was a couple of people who attended last year actually started podcasts after attending PressureCon.
Yeah.
And they've told me that, PressureCon was the thing that, empowered them to the point where they felt like, it was time to get after it and go and establish their own way and build their own tribe. And it was great to see. Another thing is the networking aspect of it. A bunch of different connections were made at PressureCon last year that proved very, very productive for the people involved. And that's a component of meeting in the real world and actually spending some time, sharing some space, exchanging that energy that a real world event like this, provides. So there are a bunch of people that I already saw that are on the comments here that are already attending. They're members and they've already registered for it. If there's anybody that has any questions, definitely message myself, message Pat, email at info@thepressureproject.com. Any questions you have. It's $47 a month for the program. It's $397 today to go to PressureCon. If you sign up today for the site and PressureCon, it's going to be, what is it, $444? Is that how that works out?
Yeah, something like that. 446.
Whatever the fuck it is. It's going to be $100 more tomorrow. So if it's something that you're going to do, you will actually save money from doing it tomorrow by doing it today. And if you have any questions, Pat and I, 444, I'm good. If you have any, questions, Pat and I will be available all day. I'll be on my Harley, but I'll have my cell phone checking my messages. So
I respond.
Don't worry about that.
Questions. So
yeah, Pat's a fucking beast. It's something I want to see as many new guys there as possible. We have almost everybody that was there last year returning, which is great to see. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So, did I miss anything, Pat?
No. PressureCon's going to be legit. Pull the trigger, make it happen.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to
Big
it.
Terry, what's up? All right. So this is another message I got from an Aaron. And Aaron says, Master Chim, he put an exclamation point. He said, love what you're doing. I would love to hear what you and Pat would suggest in regards to the growing Islamic problem in the world. Do you guys see it as a concern? Do you see it growing in the U.S.? I have my own actionables and I'm preparing in a variety of ways. Love your work, Aaron. So we've spoken about this a lot, over the last few years. One of the biggest reasons why I started the Pressure Project was what I saw around the world in terms of how men were reacting to our adversity and all of the, there's just as submissive stances that so many men around the world were taking, in the face of this growing threat. So when it comes to what I would suggest, right? Let's keep it there. What I would suggest is we don't give an inch to any identity or culture that is incompatible with our own. I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and say, listen, we need to ban Islam. We need to get rid of Muslims because, it's such a pointless strategy. Are you Muslim? No. Okay. They fooled your best test. What do? You follow them around to see if they pray 5 times a day. They'll find ways around it. It's not about, removing the Muslim faith, from this country or from the world. It's about making sure that every component of the Muslim faith that is incompatible with Western civilization and our culture be completely fought tooth and nail with not one iota of an inch being given to them. All the concessions that have been made in our society emboldens those dysfunctional identities. Right now, 2017, the Muslim identity is becoming more and more dysfunctional around the world, certainly here in America. Where my school is in the Bronx, I need only walk right down the block and I see women, with their ninja outfits on walking down the street, in the Bronx in New York City. Are these women choosing to do this? Well, that's what they'll tell you. Watch them leave their house without, covering themselves. And we'll see what their husbands think about their ability to choose for themselves. Everybody knows this. Everybody understands this. I don't think even the people on the most liberal left are lying to themselves and thinking these women are doing this completely because they want to do it and that there isn't any pressure or consequence waiting for them from their husbands or the men in their families. But that this is happening, in the United States of all places is just, reprehensible. What I think we do is we don't give up an inch to any culture that is dysfunctional with our own. Assimilation isn't something that we could enforce in terms of incentivizing people to become who we are. What we do is we make sure that assimilation is the only open door available to them. You don't get to have forms written in your language. You don't get to cover your face in public. You don't get to conduct yourself in a way that is disempowering to the communities to which you are moving. Now, one of the sort of catch-22s of, putting forth an opinion and a strategy on how to deal with Muslims and the growing, problem with radicalized Muslims and whatnot is we have other problems that we need to deal with. We have a lot of communities in the ghetto that can't get their shit together because of all the things that we had mentioned before about incentivized systems where, it pays for them to be losers. It pays for them
and the consequence is not waiting for them for disruptive behavior. When they have the outburst. Did you see that video the other day with they had like some day of the fuck do they call it? Like, I don't know. It was a day that white people weren't supposed to show up.
No.
You hear about that, Pat?
Day the white people at a college campus?
Yeah.
I didn't I didn't click on it, but
a day of abstinence or some shit. I don't know what the fuck it was called. Basically, it was a day white people weren't supposed to show up.
Okay.
And there was a video of this white lady professor getting berated, almost like to the point where I was expecting her to get hit at any moment in the hallway by all these black students. Like, this has to be crushed. It has to be crushed. Listen, if you want to protest, there's a way to protest. If you have an issue with the way that our society is designed, the government is designed, we have channels for doing that. Sure. But as soon as you decide to be a sort of a physical antagonist, well, that's how you're dealt with, and they should be crushed. I'm not a big fan of going to these rallies and picking fights with the little skinny Marxists with their masks on and stuff. I think my time is much better spent doing other things. But the caveat to that whole thing is, if you do, want to participate in a legal rally, and somebody is looking to infringe upon that, the police are there for a fucking reason. And the police should be held to a standard that they have to crush that shit. They have to eliminate that shit. Because when they don't, then it puts it on us. And then what happens is you have a situation where we are now feeling it necessary to do the police's job, which ultimately gives the police the power to then react to how we respond. And that's the end game. That's, we get everybody to act like fucking retards. We could just, put the military in charge of everything, and we'll take away everybody's freedoms. You saw it in what happened in Boston, after the Boston bombing. Yeah. Boston shut down and became like a fucking Germany, like
martial law, almost.
Like immediately people having their, families being pulled out of their homes and having their homes searched and rampaged through by people with fucking, like, the police with guns. It's fucking ridiculous. It was happening on the streets of America. Didn't take much for it to happen, by the way.
Nope.
And the problem is that people are so out of touch with what freedom is that you had a component of the people in Boston going, well, listen, this is what they have to do to find those guys. This is what, like, fuck you. You're not fucking going to my house because some motherfucker 2 miles away blew some shit up. He's not in my fucking house. I'll tell you that shit right now.
Yeah.
You want to come to my house, get a fucking warrant, But this is what we're so detached. We're so more interested in who's going to win the basketball game and who's fucking who in Hollywood and such fucking nonsense. But this is what happens. But these are changes that are happening internally that are compromising our ability to deal with external threats. And that's the overall point. You know what I mean?
Did you see the little, it was a half clip, half picture, half video. Top half had Tiger Woods. It said he got arrested for DWI. And at the bottom, it was the Fox logo. It says, I don't give a fuck.
I don't give a fuck.
That was funny.
It was funny, and it was perfectly, timed, too. Because apparently he got arrested for driving drunk or some shit.
I didn't hear about
Who
that.
Who gives a fuck?
First time I heard about that was with I don't give a fuck meme. So.
Right. But there'll be people who that's what they're going to fill their conversation with today. Talking about fucking nonsense. People that have nothing to do with us doing shit that ain't never going to affect us. But we've been tricked and hypnotized into thinking that somehow it's relevant to who we are. It's the thing is if you're not holding on to who you are, you're walking around life just waiting for people to put something in your hands to grab. Yep. And when it comes to your identity, if you don't know what you're about, if you don't know what you should be doing, then you are by definition distracted. Your natural state is a distracted one, So the thing is, we have to be proactive. We have to preempt this process by getting in touch with who we are, by getting in touch with what our mission is, you know?
Yeah. A man distracted is a man defeated.
Yeah. Get it, Pat.
In the 1970s, women in Iran wore knee-length skirts and did not cover their heads. The Shah was modernizing the nation, and the clerics revolted and took over, plunging the social status of women back into the 7th century.
Right. It's absolutely true. And you see the in Syria, the same thing. You see where the way it used to be, and then as things became more of a theocracy, especially Iran, how things just reverted, as he said. What we need to do is the opposite. What we need to do is make sure that we are abiding by our standard of living, abiding by all of the cultural aspects of our society that made us who we are. You know, as you know, speaking about America in general, and understanding that anything that compromises our ability to participate in that society compromises our ability to be that society.
100%.
You look now at, you know, in Great Britain, you know, we had the Manchester bombing. How many attacks have they had there in the last couple of years? They also have a tremendous a Muslim population. There are no-go zones. There are neighborhoods in England that are completely controlled by Muslims and Muslim enclaves and communities.
Yeah.
You know,
with impunity.
England let that happen. You know, the best of intentions. It's great. Like, you ever see a person who's like retardedly in love with their dog? You know, like they treat their dogs like fucking people.
Dogs are people.
Right. They're those people, and they're looking at their dog, and dog's laying down. And they go, "Oh, what's wrong? Something's wrong with. Is something bothering you?" And like attributing all of these sort of characteristics to this fucking animal that the animal does not possess. And this disconnected view of the dynamic between the owner and the pet sabotages the person's understanding of what the dog actually is. So my dog, I have a Belgian Malinois. My dog loves pacing. My dog loves chasing. Obviously, I got a working dog, so he loves doing his work. But if I were to doll my dog up with a little fucking vest and a little hat, you know, and have him sit down and, you know, he might be obedient, but I am not following the nature of what's going to fulfill him to the best of his ability in terms of his identity. Well, you think about all these people in Europe who have allowed this invasion of Muslim migrants into their countries. You know, these people, they don't see it as a bad thing because they're going, no, but if I was one of these people, I wouldn't take advantage of this country's generosity. I wouldn't rape the women. I wouldn't, you know, not get a job. I wouldn't destroy my community. I wouldn't disobey authority. And this is how they conduct themselves. They don't respect the identity of this people that is showing up at their borders. And it is that sort of just delusion that has put them in the predicament that they are. One of the first things you'll see, and I'm almost numb to it at this point, after one of these attacks, is you will see Europeans, right, white Europeans, native Europeans on social media immediately start threatening people about being Islamophobic. People have actually died from being bombed by a Muslim suicide bomber. And the first reaction of other people, native white Europeans, is this has nothing to do with the other Muslims. Islamophobia is bad. It's like you don't even have the fucking decency to acknowledge the loss that your country just experienced. Because you experienced a loss. That loss is completely ignored. You know, and that is what's happening. What's happening is there are countries, and America is different. America, I mean, we have the benefit of having two huge bodies of water on either side of us. We have the benefit of having our forefathers install in our Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment. And we have, as Americans, a mindset that is very, very different than the rest of the world.
Yeah.
All those things together, I think, give us the best chance to handle this. I think we will, handle it. Now, how it will be handled is another discussion. I'm of the thought process. Listen, I have 4 young children. I don't want to be shooting people in the streets. I don't want that. I don't want one of these Civil War type situations. If you guys listen to the next episode where I interview Simon from the Sightlanders organization, look at what their society's like. Look at what the shit that they're having to deal with. I don't want to live in that society. I don't want to live like those people live. 1 in 3 women getting raped, over 100,000 white South Africans murdered by black South Africans since 1994 when the African National Congress took over. I don't want to live in that fucking society. But if we get there, listen, I'm still going to be me. I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. Right? I train for a fucking reason. The whole point, though, is to collectively avoid, falling and stumbling to the point where that's what our society resembles,
Yeah, 100%.
Get it, Pat.
In Western civilization today, most people have 2 or fewer children. Muslims still have 6 or even more children. Europe imported so many Muslims to take low-income jobs because native citizens are not reproducing as they used to. Not good at all.
And it's one of the things that I often run into some static, if you will, with other people in a lot of the topics and movements that I'm a part of. It's very easy to chastise. We're back.
We're back. That was quick.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened there. But you get a lot of people in the movement who,
Is the feed still going? I can't tell. There we go.
So this thing keeps throwing me off. I don't know why.
Throwing you off? Because I was on for a second by myself, it looked like.
No, I saw the whole thing.
Okay.
All right. So
we're back. Video is back. I'm watching it. We're good.
All right. So I see the delay. It's saying you're back.
Yeah.
This software is just getting buggy. But let me get this point out before we get thrown off immediately. So you have these people who are, on board with where we should be identity-wise, on board with the fact that, there are compatible cultures, incompatible cultures, on board with the fact even that we are people who are built to overcome adversity. Like there's so many positive qualities that a lot of people who are allies with us in certain, on certain topics and certain movements, they get it right. But when it comes to children, to me, children is one of the most important part of this entire fucking issue. You have to have children. You have to have kids. Richard Spencer was he just had a conversation with Charles Barkley and some other guy that was there, some other black guy, and not a very good showing by Richard. I know that it's probably edited to make him look like a goofy idiot, but I think they managed to make him look like a goofy idiot. There's certain times where Charles Barkley's saying something, and then it cuts to him, and he's like giggling. I'm absolutely certain that was not his reply to the things that were being said, and it was the way it was edited. I understand that. Rich is a very, very smart dude. But still, one of the things that even guys like Richard Spencer, Jared Taylor to some extent, Jared usually does a better job of it, but children, we need to have children. If we don't have children, it is math. It is very simple math. You know, there are different, estimates of when whites will become a minority in America. And regardless of what that is, if we are becoming a minority, it's of our own doing. You know, there was a time where the average family would be having, I think it was 4 point something kids. Uh, Now I think it's not even two. I think it's 1 point something, and I'm just pulling these numbers out of my ass right now. I don't have them in front of me, but the sentiment is certainly true. Where you have people that are having children later, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to make everything just right before I have kids, just right.
That's
And
right.
then you see teenagers getting pregnant. You see immigrants coming here and getting pregnant and having kids, and everybody seems to make it. None of these kids seem to be dying. Everybody seems to be doing okay. But so many people who are native to America, especially the white European blooded Americans, just not having any fucking kids. You go to England, those immigrants are banging out. I mean, the guy has fucking. It's like the plains of the fucking Sahara. Like you have guys that have 2, 3 wives having kids. They play nice according to the rules of the state, and they fill out their paperwork like these women are single mothers, like they're not connected. But tribally, they're married to one man, and they're still following their own customs and traditions and rules and whatnot internally in their communities and their enclaves. And they're having a lot of fucking children. They're having a lot of children. You gotta have kids, man. You gotta have kids. I got 4 of my own. It helps. I got a hot wife. Guys got to get a hot wife. Guys got to get a hot wife.
I concur. My mom, 9 brothers and sisters.
Yeah. See, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Get it.
There's so much talk but no bite. When 30K muzzies came to Finland and started rape, etc., 500% up in some cities. So much bark online and the formation of the soldiers of Odin, but seriously, nothing happened.
Yeah, and I think it's very typical. I think when you look at what's been coined pathological altruism, I think there's a tendency for many Europeans to want to help, want to extend a hand, want to make strangers neighbors. And I don't think there's anything necessarily inherently wrong with that. But what goes along with that is a pragmatic approach to making sure everything stays on mission, and understanding when incompatible cultures are in the midst, and I think when you look at some of these countries in Europe, I think Poland is the only one that was like, get the fuck out, no more of you coming in here. You cross that line, we're shooting you.
I mean, if you help people that want to kill you, like, what are you doing?
Right. It's like fucking suicide by cop. It's like, you want to die, this is how you do it,
Yep.
And that's what you're seeing there. Now, I'll tell you right now, in America, there have been some cases, and this is how it's going to play out. You're going to have Muslims here that are going to do what they do. And not all of them, obviously, but you're going to have, and there's already been a case in Idaho that I was made aware about, where a couple of kids raped a young girl, and one of them actually raped her. The other two were prepubescent and didn't know how to function sexually, and was told by the oldest to urinate on the girl. And these kids aren't being prosecuted. They're actually being, I believe, they were given bail and allowed to stay in the housing complex where this whole thing transpired with the victim and her family. Like, what's going to happen is you're going to have little instances like this popping up, and then there's going to be a reaction. And the reaction is going to be somebody who's very angry, taking it out on somebody who probably has nothing to do with it. That's what's going to happen. And it's going to be leveraged by the media, by the politicians as, Islamophobia, racism, white supremacists, Nazi, every buzzword is going to be put on it to sort of package it the way they want to package it. But what it is you're gonna get to a point where people feel like they don't have a recourse, and they're gonna do something. And chances are, what they do is going to be completely the wrong thing, but they're going to do it anyway. And eventually, those instances will ramp up to the point where now the right steps start to be taken, because people who are sort of fingers on the fucking joysticks, hands on the wheel, they're going to start realizing that something has to be done about this, because society is moving in one direction and not one that they want to see actually continue. That's what I foresee happening. I foresee people getting to the point where they're so frustrated and so completely ill-equipped to deal with that frustration that they're going to do the wrong shit to the wrong people.
Yep.
And it's going to be some fucking Muslim guy hanging out, getting his fucking head blown off from 100 yards out. It's going to be, a family's house getting blown up. It's going to be some teenager walking home from school getting beaten down with bats. These are the things that are going to happen. And the reason it's going to happen is because it's going to get to the point where people are so frustrated that the most prone to action, right, which are usually the least sort of capable, right, the least well-adjusted of our society, the most prone to action are going to be the ones that are going to do things. And they're going to do things out of reaction, out of emotion, out of anger, and it's certainly not going to be productive. Now, I would like if something was done productively, preemptively, like let the conversation happen. It's what Donald Trump ran on, that this immigration is going to stop. So let's see. He hasn't been in office long. Let's see what happens in terms of the numbers of migrations or migrants that are being allowed into the country. What's going to happen with all of these illegal aliens that need to get the boot? They seem to be doing the right thing. There was a story the other day of a bunch of ICE officers eating in a Mexican restaurant and then busting a bunch of people after they ate.
This food is so good that I'm going to go, when I'm done, I'm going to shoot the cook.
Right. Oh, my God.
Storing balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Get it.
The welfare here in Scandinavia is a dream come true for these immigrants. How the fuck do people on fear for their lives in Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Africa and flee all the way to Sweden before they feel safe? There's something very foolish and ignorant. There's some very foolish, ignorant people living here. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Again, when you talk about incentivized behavior, you have a country with Sweden, and Marcus Folan, the golden one, is a good buddy of mine. He and I have had a lot of conversations. You have a masculine contingent in Sweden that has been all but castrated. There is the virtue signaling culture that is more prevalent in places like Sweden and Norway than I think a lot of people here in America even realize. Like when a buddy of mine that was living in Norway, who I had a conversation with not too long ago, was trying to describe to me how you cannot be prideful in Norway. Like being proud of something that you've done is considered to be in poor taste. So you are sort of measured by how you identify helping other people. So virtue signaling is at the core of how they achieve social status in these places. And if that's the case, well, that is the behavior that is incentivized. If you're going to succeed in that society, this is the game that you have to excel at playing. And unless those rules change, you are still going to see more of the same. Because at no point in this virtue signaling type society is there a sort of, stopgap whereby we say, wait a minute, this is getting too crazy. We got to go back to fucking protecting our boy. Like that is not a part of their process. So I don't expect them to deal with it at all. Just and case in point is what I was referring to before, where you have people the day after or hours or minutes after a terrorist attack, they're saying, you guys better not blame the other Muslims. Like that is the first thing on their fucking minds, And the thing is, you want to incentivize the proper behaviors amongst everybody. When these things happen, the last thing you should be doing is looking to defend Muslims, because people in those communities and parts of those people need to have the pressure put on them to make sure this element within them gets eliminated and eradicated. Because as soon as one of those things sprouts up and pops up out of their communities and goes and does one of these fucking horrific things, and everybody else comes to their defense, why should they do anything preemptively? Why should they report these people? Why should they, speak out publicly against these types of actions? There's no incentivization to do it. If they were to do it now, they would just be alienating themselves amongst their own people, because there's no consequence to not doing it, and there's no benefit to doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. Or they could just post pictures of Sikhs and say they're Muslim.
Right? How fucking retarded was that?
Fucking stupid.
Oh my God. It's fucking crazy. Is the media monitors shutting down the feed because they fear the truth being spoken? It might be.
The Zuck, he's onto us.
The Zuck. Yeah, so this is an image that I can't show because it doesn't allow me to show it. I wish I could see what that was. It's probably cool.
Awesome.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. We have what's going on? Tomorrow, should be done by tomorrow, next episode.
Just waiting on notes.
Yeah, waiting on the notes. Little guy.
But I can post it for tomorrow morning. Yeah, that's the plan.
So tomorrow I have the next episode. What number is that?
241.
241. Episode 241 is going to be tomorrow, and it's me talking with Simon Roche of the Sightlanders organization from South Africa. We have the price for PressureCon going up tomorrow. So if you are interested or on the fence, if you have any questions, contact us. I would say just do it. Obviously, it's going to be a great time, and I'm looking forward to that. And the rest of you guys, if you haven't tried out the Warrior Project yet, try it for a month. Give it a shot. See what's behind the scenes. If you don't like it, then what's the worst that you have? You have, I don't know how many power programs at this point, the participation in the private Facebook page, all of the things that I do for the Warrior Project members, are available to every single one of its members. It's not, go behind the curtain and then there's an upsell or an upgrade. Once you're there, you're part of the tribe, and that's how we deal with it. So let's end it there. I appreciate you guys. ThePressureProject.com is our website. Info@thepressureproject.com is the contact email. TheWarriorProject.com is our membership site. Check it out. All right, guys, talk to you soon. And as always, brothers, pressure to power.